After a title-deciding triple header, we move on to one more triple header of the season for the final 3 races of the season, and we start off at the Las Vegas Grand Prix. The Las Vegas Grand Prix was a surprisingly good race last year, despite all of Red Bull's dominance and despite the controversy surrounding the race. Now, as we move on to race year one more time, can it produce another good race? Will there be more controversy surrounding it? Or will it fall flat this time out? Let's get into my predictions for the 2024 Las Vegas Grand Prix. Hello everybody, my name is Michael and welcome back to Last to First. So here we are already at the end of the season with just 3 races to go, and we are at the Las Vegas Grand Prix with some crazy start times and a different time and flow to the weekend, as the race is technically on Saturday evening or early Sunday morning, depending on how you want to think about it. The weekend gets started on Thursday, and yeah, it's a weird weekend overall, but let's hope for a good weekend at Las Vegas. Now, if you're interested, give me a like and a subscribe to see more content about all things Formula One. I'll have my race rundown after the race this coming weekend. So let's get into my predictions for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Starting out in qualifying in P5, I'm going to go with Esteban Ocon. Now, maybe I'm riding the Ocon and Alpine hype train a bit after Brazil, but I think Ocon's got a good result in him. It was not a good qualifying from him last year, but his race was really fantastic, coming home to finish P4. Alpine's been looking good recently, and they look good here at last time out. I don't think he'll necessarily make the top 5 in the race, but I think he will be on for a good result. P4, I'm going to go with Carlos Sainz. I think the Ferrari is going to do quite well here, and because of that, I think Sainz is going to be a bit behind Leclerc. Typically, when the Ferrari is behaving well and to Leclerc's liking, then Sainz ends up struggling and is behind, and he typically does better when the car is a bit more challenging to drive and the track is a bit low grip, which, thinking about it, he actually might do well here because the track is probably going to be low grip with the low temperatures, but nonetheless, I'm going to lock in my P4 for Sainz, and I think it will be a decent weekend for him. Now, P3 in qualifying, I'm going to go with Lando Norris. McLaren had an absolutely shocking double Q1 exit last year, so it seems that it doesn't completely suit their car. Lando Norris also crashed out on the first few laps of the race. So just overall, not a good weekend for McLaren. But of course, the McLaren seems to be the best all-around car this year and is really just good everywhere. Just sometimes it's slightly behind, and I think this weekend it will be slightly behind, like in Brazil. Going on to P2, I'm going to go with Charles Leclerc. I think the track will suit Ferrari, and that will aid in Leclerc's performance. I think he's really going to want to bounce back after a challenging Brazil. Overall, Ferrari is just on a good upward trajectory, and Leclerc is fighting for P2 in the championship, and Ferrari is fighting for P1 in the championship. So I think all of that will really energize him and the team to produce a good result this weekend. For pole position, I'm going to go with Max Verstappen. He was really back to his normal self in Brazil. All pistons were firing between him and Red Bull, and they seem like the dominant team of old. Quali will be incredibly close, of course, but Verstappen has been happier with the car lately, and when he's happy, he pulls off some of those big boy laps to put it on pole position. So I think that's what we'll see this weekend now. Moving on to the race, I'm going to start out in P5 and go with Oscar Piastri. I think it'll be an okay quali, turned into an okay result for Piastri. He's been on the back foot for multiple weekends now, and like I mentioned, I don't think McLaren will be necessarily the fastest this weekend, so I don't think that will help him in any way. He did go from 19th to 10th last year, so he does know a thing or two about overtaking on the Las Vegas Strip, but lately I just haven't been super impressed with him. He seems to be a bit behind, and I think we're going to continue to see that this weekend. Going on to P4, I'm going to go with Lando Norris and continue on with the okayness of McLaren. With the title essentially done and dusted, I think Norris is either going to be down B and performing at a mid-level, or with the pressure of the title fight off, he's going to thrive. But I think he's going to be a bit downbeat and tired after this long, grueling season. Even a half a title battle with Verstappen is tiring, and I think it's going to cause him to perform just okay. I think he will be looking forward to finishing off the season and getting some much needed rest in the winter break, and I think he will be energized and refreshed and ready to go for 2025 after the winter break, where he knows that there's a good chance he'll be fighting for the title from the beginning, which will be interesting to see. But for this weekend, I think he's going to wind up in P4. P4 off the podium. Now for the first podium spot on the race, with P3, I'm going to go with Carlos Sainz. Like I mentioned, low grip tracks typically favor Sainz and his driving style, and I think the track will suit Ferrari as well. He was P2 in qualifying last year, and I think he's going to be very determined to end his time with Ferrari on a high note. Even if he doesn't win again with Ferrari, another podium will certainly be on his mind, and I think he will be wanting to at least help them try to bring home the Constructors' Championship this year. P2 in the race, I'm going to go with Max Verstappen. I think he will pull off one of his usual incredible laps to bring home pole position, but I think the Red Bull will be the second fastest car over a race distance, and I think that's why he will come home second. I think he'll comfortably finish ahead of Sainz and the McLarens, but I think we may see a nice battle for the lead between him and who I think will win, and I think we'll see a similar thing as to last year. Now for the win of the Las Vegas Grand Prix, I'm going to go with Charles Leclerc. He was quite close to winning last year despite the dominance of the Red Bull. They wound up only about 2 seconds apart. Now with Ferrari being quite good again this year, the Red Bull not being as dominant, and the general closeness of the field, I think Leclerc will be able to bring home a win this time, and I think it'll be a tight, interesting battle for the lead, but Leclerc will pounce on the opportunity and take advantage of it and bring home a win. Going on to my masterclass of the weekend, I'm going to double down with Esteban Ocon. Now, once again, maybe I am on the hype train a little bit, but Ocon did do amazing here last year, coming home P4, and I think we will see him get some good points again this year, now that the Alpine is on a better trajectory. He's got his Captain America helmet for the Grand Prix, and with only 3 races to go at Alpine and being alongside Gasly, he certainly will not mind putting his elbows out and fighting aggressively. So I think he's going to be wanting to get some good results, and he's not going to care what happens in the final 3 races because he has a seat for him at Haas, and he can burn whatever bridges he wants at Alpine. For my masterclass of the weekend, I'm going to go with Mercedes. Mercedes' performance in general has not been so good since their rise before the summer break. Between Russell's multiple crashes and Hamilton's poor form, plus some of his crashes, I think it will be a rough weekend for Mercedes. They have just been not fully understanding the rules, and it's been a struggle. Even though Russell was fighting for a win in the first stint in Brazil, by the end he was over 20 seconds adrift from Verstappen and never really looked like a true contender. Mercedes are really just still lost with these regulations, and with everybody's attention fully turned towards 2025 and Mercedes' lack of spare parts, I think Mercedes is going to struggle. I believe Toto Wolff has mentioned it already, but I believe they'll use these final 3 races really just as a learning session to try to understand these regulations. And it's incredibly important that they do finally get an understanding of these regulations, because 2026 is right around the corner. And while the engines are changing dramatically, the ground effect style of cars is staying generally the same. So a lot of knowledge and processes will carry over to 2026. So if Mercedes doesn't get on top of their struggles with the ground effect cars, no matter how good their engine is in 2026, they are going to continue to struggle if they don't understand these rules. Now, lastly, moving on to my bold prediction for the weekend, I'm going to go with Lance Stroll getting some points. It just feels like a Stroll thing to do, him crashing out in the formation lap at Brazil and then scoring some points in the next race despite the Aston being an absolute trash can. It just feels like something Lance Stroll would do. The Aston was good here last time, but they were on a more positive trajectory at this point in the season than last year. Now the Aston is not good at all, and Lance Stroll has been performing at a very low level, but I just feel like he might wind up with a good result and get some points this time out. And I think we are going to see some surprises throughout the field. I think Vegas will just cause a little bit of chaos, so I think we'll see some surprising results up and down the grid, and I think this will be one of those surprising results. All right, so those are my predictions for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Let me know down below what your guys' thoughts are. What are your predictions for the race? Are you looking forward to the race at all this year, or do you not care so much about this race? Either way, looking forward to hearing everything down below in the comments. If you are interested, give me a like and a follow on social media. I'm on X as Last to First Real, first spelled F1RST, and on Instagram as Last to First. Also on all the major podcast platforms as Last to First, and of course on YouTube as well as Last to First. So thank you all for tuning in for my predictions for the Las Vegas Grand Prix, and I'll see you all at the end of the weekend for my race rundown of the Las Vegas Grand Prix.